Hello everyone, I'm making this quick video to give you my thoughts on StarCraft II Legacy of the Void. I can safely say that I liked it better than Heart of the Swarm. When it comes to gameplay, it certainly introduces more new things to the game. I'm not a professional player or anything like that, but to me, the differences in gameplay between Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty were much smaller than those that are between Legacy of the Void and Heart of the Swarm. Legacy of the Void didn't simply add new units, it changed the way the game works. It changes the start very much, it changes the frequency at which you have to expand. The new units added introduce quite a lot of micro. The Zerg is a very notable example. The Roach mutation and the Hydra mutation, Roach into a Ravager and Hydra into Lurker, introduces a whole new sort of gameplay that was completely non-existent in previous games, or in previous states of the game. It also introduced the co-op missions, which I think need a little more work, but it's better to have them than not. There's also the Archon mode, which, given how more micro-intensive the game has become with this expansion, the Archon mode is a very welcome addition, since one person can focus on the micro, and another one on establishing the base, expanding, and that sort of thing. As for the story, the campaign, I honestly didn't like Heart of the Swarm all that much. I mean, we did get to learn some interesting things about the Zerg, but the entire Kerrigan plot felt kind of unnecessary. It seems to me like Jim and Kerrigan could have just attacked Core Hall straight up as soon as he found her. No, from the first mission, she just somehow takes control of the Zerg and go and kill Mengsk. You know, the entire arc where she turns back into the Queen of Blades didn't really appeal to me. Kerrigan was even annoying at some points. Like, I found her a little too overconfident. She acted as though she's this extremely cunning and wise leader and strategist, and always correcting others and telling them how they're flawed and whatnot. And at the same time, she sees a picture of Jim Raynor with a Photoshop bullet on his helmet, and she goes insane, basically. I wasn't a big fan of Heart of the Swarm. The gameplay certainly was interesting. There were some new things introduced to the campaign. I believe the Wings of Liberty campaign is probably the most basic when it comes to the gameplay, which is expected. But there we go. And here, I thought it was better. I enjoyed seeing the different protoss factions, them putting aside their differences, or those who didn't put aside their differences were sort of separated, talking about the Tal'Darim. There were a few little themes developing as the plot goes, like the AI theme and the way history should be observed, how important traditions are and the detriments to them when it comes to unifying a whole society as opposed to small factions. And that sort of thing was interesting. It kept me invested into the story. The characters were interesting and likable, Artanis, Vorazun, Alarak, Karax, Rohana. They all had their moments. Now, I should probably address the ending, because many people hate the ending, or it seems so. I have to admit I'm not one of them, and by the ending I'm referring to the epilogue's ending. I think what people don't like the most is that it's somewhat ambiguous. Now, while I agree, I don't necessarily mind, because the ambiguity is about Kerrigan and Jim Raynor, mostly. The story gives us somewhat of a decent conclusion for the Protoss, the Zerg, and the Terran. The Terran are going to a golden age, negotiating peace with the Protoss. At the same time, the Protoss are being reborn, so to speak, without the Kala. They're rebuilding, they're united. Ironically, their bond is probably stronger now without the Kala. And I like that. Also, the Zerg, not very clear. Apparently, they're becoming independent now under Zagara. There are the stories of several characters that are not being concluded, but I assume they are going to be concluded next year, so I'm going to give them a pass. They revealed the Nova arc that's coming next year. Some people, including me, have wondered about, what was her name? Broodmother Niadra, I think? The one who was left on the Golden Armada in Heart of the Swarm. There's also Tosh, unless they decide to make the Nova kills Tosh canon, which I hope not. I want to see Nova and Tosh both alive. So hopefully these stories will be concluded next year. If not, then that's a bad thing, and it should have been added. The epilogue to the game, I have to say, certainly felt too brief, but the conclusion was satisfying for me. Now, as for the ambiguous conclusion for Kerrigan and Jim Raynor, I don't actually know what truly happens. but I feel like it's okay to be left for interpretation. I didn't feel angry that some things are not revealed, unlike Mass Effect 3's ending, for example. Is Kerrigan human? Is she Xel'Naga, who assumes human form, similar to the way Narut did? Did Jim Raynor commit suicide? Some people theorized about that. I didn't get that vibe. What I did get is that perhaps he was hallucinating. Like he's been drinking a lot. His drinking has been with him since the beginning of the first game. It starts with him at the bar and ends that way. So perhaps that's sort of a dark interpretation of the ending. Is that he falls victim to his alcoholism essentially and imagines that he sees Kerrigan towards the end and then just goes somewhere and maybe even dies, I don't know. But I like to believe otherwise. I like to believe that he gets a happy ending, so that's why I feel like the ambiguity of the ending is fine with me. I can clearly see how it could have a more sad or dark interpretation, and if that's how you feel it should be, go ahead. So those were my thoughts. I enjoyed the game. It was everything if not more than I expected. It certainly didn't disappoint me. I can't say Heart of the Swarm disappointed me, but maybe a little. Here, no, I liked it. I liked the gameplay changes. The cinematics were good. The characters were likable. I'd say they did a reasonably good job. I have no major complaints, honestly, and that's how it goes. Thank you very much for watching. Tell me what you think about the game, the story, and the gameplay, and everything as a whole. And until next video, stay tuned and be good.